Asajj Ventress was the child of Radataki warlords, left orphaned by the endless conflict. A latent force sensitive, she was discovered by the shipwrecked Jedi Knight Kai Narek, who trained her as his apprentice. Master and student became crusaders of justice, taking the fight to the warlords, who put aside their feud to combat this threat to their power bases. Narek was killed by a Radataki assassin, and a distraught Ventress gave in to her lust for vengeance, embracing the darkness. It was during the weeks preceding the opening battles of the Clone Wars where Count Dooku came to Ratatak in search of a military lieutenant. Ventress presented herself to him and demonstrated her skills by slaughtering the warriors in the gladiatorial arena. With the military and financial backing of the Separatist Alliance, Ventress was able to conquer Ratatak, and as Dooku's primary Dark Jedi acolyte, she was provided with introductory training in the Sith arts. Left with standing orders to eliminate Anakin Skywalker by Darth Sidious. It was ultimately Skywalker's master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, however, that became the subject of Ventress' obsession. It would be in her pursuit of Kenobi that she would provoke the wrath of Skywalker on Coruscant, discovering his secret marriage to the Naboo senator Padme Amidala. Skywalker unleashed a rage-driven Force fury, entangling Ventress in electrified cables and dropping her into the Coruscant underlevels, seemingly killing her. Ventress managed to survive and return to Dooku, who sent her to a medical facility on Boz Pity to recover, spending the final months of the Clone Wars in a Bacta tank, until Boz Pity was invaded by Republic forces. In the midst of the battle, Kenobi entered the facility and discovered Ventress and was confronted by Dooku, who stepped aside and let Ventress hurl herself at Kenobi in a blood-fueled rage, their bout eventually leading out onto the plains of Boz Pity, where Skywalker joined in to support his master. However, engaging Kenobi and Skywalker had taken her too far away from the CIS evac point, and rather than let her be captured, Dooku ordered her gunned down. Ventress sold out Dooku by providing intel about his plans to Kenobi, before using a Sith hibernation technique to fake her death. Her body was loaded on a Republic medical shuttle for transport back to Coruscant, but Ventress revived herself and hijacked the transport, disappearing into the unknown regions. Her subsequent fate is unknown. Born to a Zabrak tribe on Dathomir, Darth Maul was the former Sith apprentice of Darth Sidious. His training under Sidious began during Sidious's own apprenticeship under Darth Plagueis, who permitted Maul to be trained despite it being a violation of the Rule of Two. Sidious used Maul as a field assassin primarily to intimidate and assassinate crime bosses, political rivals, and lone Jedi as tests for his apprentice before fully naming him a Lord of the Sith after he murdered his own master. During the Naboo crisis, approximately 32 years before the Battle of Yavin, Maul was sent to track down Queen Amidala's party and Jedi protectors and bring her back to Naboo, tracking the Queen to the desert world of Tatooine. Maul engaged Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn. However, this engagement exposed that the Sith had survived the centuries under a cloak of subterfuge and deception. Sent back to Naboo to intercept the Jedi, Maul would engage Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi through the Seed energy reactor, defeating Jinn but slain by Kenobi. Miraculously, Maul survived but was driven mad by the experience. Discovered by his brother Savage Opress in the junk fields of Lothal Minor, Maul was taken back to Dathomir, where the Night Sister clan mother Talzin rebuilt Maul and healed his damaged mind. Fueled by his desire for revenge against Kenobi, Maul would face him several times, leading to Maul attempting to psychologically break Kenobi by murdering his lover, the Duchess Satine of Mandalore. After Kenobi escaped, Maul's former master Darth Sidious arrived on Mandalore due to Maul and his brother becoming a blip on Palpatine's radar when they seized control of Death Watch in Mandalore, waging an intense lightsaber duel through the royal palace and into the plaza below. Sidious struck down Opress and overpowered Maul and proceeded to capture him. Several months later, Maul's forces would come under siege by Republic and Mandalorian Loyalist forces, led by former Jedi Ahsoka Tano and Lady Bo-Katan. After his attempt to recruit Tano failed, the two squared off in the Mandalore throne room before being led out onto a set of structural support beams. Tano managed to beat Maul and successfully capture him. However, it was here that Maul's delusional vision about his former master's plan came into effect, culminating in the Great Jedi Purge. After being set free by Tano and wreaking havoc aboard the cruiser he was being transported to Coruscant on, Maul hijacked a ship and fled, eventually settling on the ancient Sith world of Malachor. Discovered by the Jedi trainee Ezra Bridger, Maul aided Bridger and his allies in defeating the three Inquisitors that had tracked him to Malachor. However, Maul's true motive was to use the ancient Sith temple as a crucible to exact revenge on his enemies, recruit Ezra as his apprentice, and kill off both Ezra's current master, Kanan Jarrus, and finish what he started with Ahsoka. After a brief bout with a blinded Kanan, Maul was disabled and fled the planet due to the arrival of Darth Vader. Several months later, and left with nothing but his desire for revenge against Kenobi, Maul tracked the Jedi Master to the desert world of Tatooine, and after a brief clash of blades, Maul was finally struck down and defeated. My analyses of Asajj Ventress will be drawn specifically from Legends materials pre-2008, including but not limited to the novels, Dark Horse comics, and the Clone Wars microseries, and will be ignoring her appearances in TCW. My analysis of Sith Renegade Darth Maul will be drawn from his appearances from the following sources: Darth Maul Shadow Hunter, the Phantom Menace Film, comic, and novelization tie-in, the following TCW episodes: Season 4 Revenge, Season 5 Revival, Season 5 The Lawless, the Season 7 Siege of Mandalore Arc, and the following episodes of Star Wars Rebels Season 2, The Phantom Apprentice Part 2, and Season 3 Twin Suns. Background information on both characters and the overall setting will be pulled from the Jedi Path, the Book of Sith, the Essential Guide to the Force, the Jedi Academy Training Manual, the Clone Wars Era Campaign Guide, the New Essential Guide to Alien Species, and the New Essential Guide to Chronology, among others. To clarify, though I am not negatively biased towards how Ventress was handled in TCW, considering I have not read the events of Dark Disciple and likely do not intend to, given the poor things I have heard, Ventress, in my opinion, was not handled poorly during the course of the series. She was merely the subject of bad episode storylines, specifically the episode where she becomes a bounty hunter and the mess that was the Season 5 finale. As for Maul, while I share Jen Soray's opinion that the writers got him ass backwards in some areas, the biggest crime against his character was not having him use a saber staff after his resurrection until Season 7, as he was the character that popularized the weapon and it became iconic to him specifically across the various media he has been portrayed in, much in the same way that Ventress's curved lightsabers remain iconic to her, despite what Season 5 and Dark Disciple would tell you. To hell with that nonsense. What fascinated me about this matchup specifically was both combatants' unhealthy obsession with Obi-Wan Kenobi and both being assassin-type characters that were ultimately discarded by their masters. In order to provide a complete overview of Maul's skill set as he developed over the course of TCW Rebels and to keep the contest as fair as possible, I will be compromising by only including material in TCW in which he uses his saber staff rather than having him use his standard saber and the dark saber. With that ugly mess out of the way, let us proceed. Asajj Ventress, Dark Jedi and Warrior Lieutenant to Count Dooku, and Darth Maul, Abandoned Apprentice and Renegade Sith. If these two were to face each other in single combat, who would win? Asajj Ventress was a Ratataki female in her early to mid-20s, native to the war-ridden world of Ratatak. The Ratataki were a humanoid species distinguished by their pale skin and complete lack of body hair, and were infamous for being brutal shock troopers. Ventress was distinguished by the 6 marked tattoos on both sides of her head, a death count of rival warlords she slew. As a physical combatant, she was athletically built and focused her attributes around agility and dexterity, showcased by her nimble gymnastics and handling of twin blades. Her efficiency and economy of motion reinforced her stamina, and she was able to take and shrug off almost anything thrown at her, recovering quickly after being blasted through the walls of the Yavin Temple. Her emphasis on dexterity was, however, forced by her lack of strength. Despite being robust and hardy, Ventress cannot handle a slugging match, simply because she cannot hold her ground, which has allowed many of her opponents to undermine or overpower her defenses on numerous occasions. Ventress's outfit reflected how she chose to deal with these shortcomings. She wore a form-fitting Celestinian jumpsuit, using evasion to avoid hits rather than tanking them. While the jumpsuit helped her deal with the abrasiveness of the battlefield, while leaving her with full range of motion with none of the weight. She completed the outfit with a heavy set of boots and gloves, while a combat skirt obscured her profile. However, while the bodysuit allowed her full range of motion and was very practical on the battlefield, it provided no actual protection. Ventress was not fragile. Her speed allowed her to keep pace with almost every opponent she has faced across her career, but she was not a tank despite being hardy enough to shrug off some pretty nasty hits. Her greatest advantage as a physical combatant was ultimately dictated by her ability to keep opponents off balance and stay out of their crosshairs. Darth Maul was a Zabrak male of unspecified age, though given his use of a walking stick by the time of Rebels, I think it is safe to say that he is likely middle-aged, roughly in his 50s by the time of his death, making his likely age during the time frame he is being examined around his mid to late 30s. Native to Iridonia, the Zabrak were a race of humanoids distinguished by a set of cranial horns atop their scalps, a secondary heart which afforded better control over their cardiovascular functions, and the individual facial tattoos, Maul possessing a set of Sith tattoos applied by his former master Darth Sidious across his body. Maul was also distinguished by a set of prosthetic legs, his first set taken from the remains of super battle droids and fused with his body by Mother Talzin, providing him with increased height and being able to perform otherwise impossible acrobatic maneuvers. His second pair was a standard set given to him by Death Watch after they saved him from his defeat on Florum. Maul was also further distinguished by his permanently yellow eyes and retained his muscular physique even into middle age, despite prolonged use of the dark side causing negative physical traits. Maul's strength was significant that he could knock other trained force wielders to the ground with a single kick, such as when he did so against Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi multiple times and Qui-Gon Jinn during the Duel of Fates. His stamina and durability were also considerable, being taught to ignore pain and being punished for flinching. He was also able to take the Night Sister Michaela's lightning, and the only time he actually flinched was when he was cut in half. His speed was also considerable, being able to keep pace with council-level force wielders and performing acrobatic evasions with casual ease. His dexterity was also highly refined, being able to wield 2 blades and also feeding into his use of the saber staff, a weapon noted for requiring exceptional dexterity to wield, as it was stated to be much more dangerous to the wielder than the standard lightsaber. All in all, Maul was a peak physical specimen, all of his attributes balanced across the board, perfect for the type of combat he favored. This conclusion is complicated. Both combatants are in their physical prime and possess many of the same attributes. However, a look at the smaller strokes of the paintbrush reveals very different training backgrounds and outcomes. Ventress is superior to Maul in agility and capable of contending with other fighters much more physically able than herself. and although she has the stamina to carry her through a long-term fight, she cannot handle a sluggy match, preferring to outmaneuver and break her opponent's composure by wearing them down and staying out of their crosshairs. Her lackluster strength further reinforcing this. By contrast, Maul's attributes were built up specifically for physical combat, and he was perfectly able to handle slugging matches or head-on engagements, his strength and durability being significantly greater than Ventress, as he has survived injuries that will leave her a crippled or dead corpse on the ground. Although Ventress has been struck by a lightsaber and not long after that has been gunned down by a blaster carbine, making her at least on par in terms of durability to Maul. It should also be noted that she was struck by Anakin, his era's reigning master of Gemso, and was shot by a Magna Guard. And considering that Magna Guards were specifically built and trained by General Grievous to be able to combat Jedi, and were also expert marksmen, meaning they were programmed with knowledge of almost every known species anatomy analogous to the same information programmed into the T-800 from the Terminator franchise, meaning they knew exactly where to hit in order to take their target down quickly. This makes this feat nothing to thumb one's nose at. However, Maul outclasses her simply by the fact that he survived, just barely, being cleaved in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and has a tolerance for pain that Ventress simply cannot match. Darth Maul gets the physical advantage.